This is CBC Saturday News.
Good evening, I'm Magda Gebrselassie. Lake Ontario water levels are high and getting even higher. As of mid-May, it was 68 centimeters above average for this time of year. Now, many are worried that what happened 2 years ago with major flooding could happen again. And if it does, residents who live by the water in Bowmanville say they're better prepared. Lisa Shing has the story.
Lake Ontario is calm today, a stark contrast to this. The backyards of these homes along Cedar Crest Beach Road have flooded several times already since the beginning of May.
You don't sleep. You cannot leave your house. There is no going on vacation or anything of that nature because you don't know what tomorrow is going to bring.
For the last 6 weeks and for the next 6 or so weeks, you're here constantly monitoring.
Constantly monitoring.
Swells at this time of year are common now along this particular stretch, and water levels are still creeping up.
This is about when rocks are being thrown up. Wave surges throw the rocks up, that you're just doing what you can to protect your windows.
People here like Sarah Delicate have multiple pumps ready to go, and volunteers are helping them with sandbagging.
Mom and Dad are seniors and they live up the beach, which is full of seniors, children, really vulnerable people.
It's in our own community, so we thought it's a great opportunity to come out and help the local residents. Our head office is only a few kilometers from here.
They've been doing this work for the last 6 weeks, reinforcing their homes with barriers too. This will continue every Saturday and Sunday until the lake starts to recede in mid-June. Lake Ontario water levels are affected by a number of factors, including higher than average outflow from Lake Erie, local rainfall and runoff. But residents here in Bowmanville who live along the shoreline here say there's another factor at play.
You hear people say all the time, well, why did you build so close? We didn't build so close. There's a massive man-made pier that has starved our shoreline. Literally, my property line is 40 feet out.
In 2017, the community wasn't prepared for the surge. Homes flooded, property was damaged, and some had to evacuate. This year is different. There are weekly planning meetings and money saved up. And
instead of sandbagging during the event, we're sandbagging in preparation for that event because it's inevitable.
Even though the community is ready for more flooding, they're looking to the different levels of governments for longer-term solutions. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Bowmanville.
Now here in the city, the rising lake water is spilling over onto the Humber Bay Boardwalk as Toronto remains under a shoreline hazard warning. Now along the city's shoreline, you can see lake water is covering portions of the walking path, beaches are shortened, and trees are in the water. The levels have not yet reached the record set in 2017, but are expected to keep rising in the next few weeks. The City of Ottawa has opened its online service for recent flood victims to submit requests for repair work. Severe flooding this year across the Ottawa-Gatineau region damaged several homes and forced some people to leave. Now, water levels began to recede last week. Residents who need help repairing their homes, both inside and out, can now fill out an application online. The city says it won't officially begin recovery operations until floodwaters have receded even further, and that's expected to occur sometime next week. Sophia Kambalia is now here with the first look at the weather. Sophia, it seems like we've been talking about flooding for weeks now.
Yeah, and certainly a very different start to the unofficial start to summer, a much slower start to the season, and a very different long weekend for many. As you mentioned, Lake Ontario water levels still very high. We've been hovering at the high end of normal for, as you said, a few weeks now. We've had a lack of sunshine. The ground is oversaturated. We also have the backlog in a lot of the northern watersheds. And to add insult to injury, much of the region will continue to see rain this long weekend. Now, in the long range, we'll talk more about what it means for the potential for your firework timing, but I got to talk about some of the areas hard hit by flooding first. A lot of severe weather stateside. We will see our share of that as well in southern Ontario. Ahead of the warm front Sunday morning, those of you in eastern Ontario could see some light showers. along with some in cottage country throughout the day Sunday. Summer-like warmth, heat, very gusty conditions, mostly dry in the south except for east of the GTA. And then it's late day Sunday into Monday when heavy rain and thunderstorms could pop up. We'll detail the severe risk. For the most part, you're dry in southern Ontario, but if you do have a rumble of thunder come by, the rainfall amounts could be quite heavy. There is a lot of potential energy available in the atmosphere. We'll also talk when we return about the potential for the summer-like warmth. 30-degree heat is in the cards for some, so that will do some good news for the flooding story. It is a sharp downturn for Monday. We will detail the full Victoria Day long weekend forecast when we return.
All right, thank you.
Welcome.
Some residents in the beach say cars keep crashing into their homes. Fed up with drivers speeding on their stretch of road, they're now calling on the city to take action. Adrian Chung has the story.
The sharp bend that goes north at Woodbine Avenue and Lakeshore Boulevard can be deadly, with drivers losing control, their cars hurtling into homes that sit right alongside the road.
Around the corner, misjudging a turn, or they're intoxicated, whatnot, and just flying into our homes.
After one of those crashes, the scars of the damage are easy to find. Standing at that curve for any length of time, and you can see the posted speed limit of 50 kilometers an hour seems to be just a suggestion for plenty of drivers.
It's pretty scary. I don't like even taking my garbage out at night. If I take my dogs out to go to the bathroom, just your average kind of chore that you would do, it makes it terrifying.
The people who live on this stretch of Woodbine say those car wrecks aren't one-off cases. Neighbors Angelica and Kelsey have seen multiple crashes in the last 4 years. According to Vision Zero, the city's online tracker on road safety, a person was killed in 2010 and another crash caused serious injuries last year.
There is really no other way to do it other than a way to force the drivers to slow down. The protection is nice, but as we've seen in past accidents, it is easy for cars to still bypass the protection.
Neighbors are banding together with an online petition, gathering over 600 signatures. They're calling on the city to step up to change the deadly stretch. Councillor Brad Bradford says there's a commitment to slow drivers down.
In the short term, I will be having a watch your speed sign installed. So that'll be going up in the next few weeks. And then after that, we'll be taking a look at the speed on that section.
Residents here say that in this one instance, change can't come fast enough.
One of these days it's going to kill someone, and there have been fatalities.
Adrian Chung, CBC News, Toronto.
The Canadian Museum for Human Rights has decided to change the way it describes the past treatment of Indigenous people. It's now calling that treatment genocide. The museum says it's doing so because it has listened to its critics. Indigenous people are welcoming the move, but they also say it's been a long time coming. CBC's Austin Grabish explains.
With his Anishinaabe regalia, Don Kelly celebrates his identity, but it wasn't always this way.
They made us feel guilty about being who we were. They made us feel dirty. They made us feel compelled to try and be something else.
A survivor of an Ontario residential school, Kelly was punished for speaking his mother tongue and says he often went to bed hungry. For years, Indigenous leaders have called the past treatment genocide. Now the Canadian Museum for Human Rights is too. The museum has decided to use the term to describe the treatment of Indigenous peoples in this country. It says the residential school system was a key part of the genocide.
I think it's about time. I mean, we always knew it was going to be genocide. We always knew it was genocide.
The word genocide will soon appear in this panel. The move by the museum is an about-face in how it describes Canada's historic treatment of Indigenous peoples. Previously, the museum said it wasn't in a position to determine what constituted a genocide.
The colonial experience in Canada is reflective of genocide towards Indigenous peoples. Acknowledging that is a part of reconciliation.
CEO John Young says the museum is using the United Nations definition of the crime. It says genocide is any act committed with the intent to destroy a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group. The museum says it's been using the word genocide in various exhibits, programs, and online since 2017. For 2 years before that, it used the term cultural genocide. Wanda Pasapa hopes the language helps to educate people ignorant of Canada's history. She too went to residential school and still feels the impact today.
I could name over 100 people that died because of alcohol and drug abuse after they left the residential school.
Back at the powwow, Kelly is dancing proud.
Celebrate life. Celebrate the act of being who you are, what you've become. Celebrate that because we have so much to be thankful for.
Austin Grabish, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Ahead of next year's presidential election, Joe Biden is rejecting the idea that anger is what's needed to motivate Democrats. The former U.S. vice president formally launched his campaign today with a call for unity. We'll have the latest after the break. Now that there's a deal to lift U.S. tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum, attention is now turning to the new North American Free Trade Agreement and making sure that it gets ratified in all three countries. But for now, as Lorenda Redekop reports, Canadian producers are breathing a sigh of relief.
At this company that makes steel tubes used in everything from furniture to car parts, they're thrilled.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's the best news we've had in quite some time. yeah, really happy to see that that hurdle out of the way.
As of tomorrow, tariffs the U.S. government slapped on Canadian products last year, 25% on steel, 10% on aluminum, will be gone. So too will the tariffs Canada imposed on U.S. products.
I think some damage has certainly been done to Canada's brand as a reliable steel supply, but certainly, you know, that's just initial reaction. So hopefully we can overcome that that reputation.
So today is a really good day. We just got a full lift on the steel and aluminum tariffs. Right on.
The plant where the Prime Minister made his announcement managed to avoid any layoffs over the past year. It and other companies were helped by $2 billion from the federal government to support the industry. Now it's hoping for more growth.
Now that we have that cleared out of the way, we've become leaner, smarter, better, and we're going to be able to really excel now with a much broader market.
There's now a sense of relief across an industry that had been hoping for this news for months.
We have been experiencing job losses, loss of investment, and just a general sense of depression in the industry. So the lifting has, breathed new life into the steel sector.
And for the workers in Hamilton, commonly known as Steel Town,
well, they might have an extra beer or two over the weekend and enjoy the fireworks a little more. I think, stability in the industry and in the North American market is very important, and I think we've achieved that.
Foreign Affairs Minister Chrystia Freeland says the Canadian government was clear that as long as the tariffs remained, it would be difficult to ratify the new NAFTA deal. Now, she says, it's full steam ahead. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
Joe Biden took aim at both Donald Trump and his critics within the Democratic Party this afternoon. Now, he gave a rousing speech at his campaign's official kickoff rally in Philadelphia. CBC's Stephen D'Souza has more.
Taking the stage in Philadelphia, former Vice President Joe Biden rolled up his sleeves and said, as president, he'll unify the country.
Our politics has become so mean, so petty, so negative, so partisan, so angry, and so unproductive.
As he has since he entered the race 3 weeks ago, Biden pitched his experience working with Republicans and touted his work on health care with Barack Obama. He also painted a stark contrast to Donald Trump.
If the American people want a president to add to our division, lead with a clenched fist, a closed hand, a hard heart, to demonize your opponent, to spew hatred, they don't need me. They've got President Donald Trump.
Biden is the early frontrunner, polling well ahead of the nearly 24 other Democrats vying to be president. But there are persistent questions about whether the 76-year-old is the right person to lead the party, whether his policies on climate, justice, and more are out of step with the more progressive elements in the Democratic Party. Among those voicing concerns, Senator Kamala Harris, whose launch day crowd was many times larger than Biden's. Earlier this week, she bristled at the suggestion that she could be his running mate.
I think that Joe Biden would be a great running mate. As vice president, he's proven that he knows how to do the job.
Other Democratic contenders are fighting back with policy. Today, Bernie Sanders released a sweeping education platform, including a pledge to ban government-funded charter schools.
Taxpayer money should not be going to make Wall Street operatives even richer.
For his part, Biden has said he won't attack fellow Democrats, keeping his message positive.
We choose hope over fear, truth over lies, and yes, unity over division.
But with many months still to go in the campaign, the question now, is that the message, and is he the candidate to motivate Democrats? Stephen D'Souza, CBC News, New York.
The debate over abortion is currently a polarizing issue in the United States. Alabama's Republican majority has passed the most restrictive abortion law in the U.S., outlawing the procedure even in cases of rape and incest. Doctors who perform an abortion could face up to 99 years in prison. Alabama is just the latest Republican-controlled legislature to clamp down on women's reproductive rights. Last week, Georgia passed the so-called heartbeat bill. It would make abortion illegal once a heartbeat is detected. Missouri is on course to do the same, and 13 other states either have laws that ban all or most abortions or are considering them. All of it is setting a course to the Supreme Court for a battle over Roe versus Wade.
Play defense.
Advice from a fan as the Raptors gear up for Game 3 on home court on Sunday. We'll have more from young basketball players at a tournament of their own after the break. Archaeologists are digging up the grounds of Parliament Hill, and they are unearthing the remains of a pre-Confederation military site. CBC's Kimberly Molina has the story.
I have to go get a little bag for this.
A worker uncovers a pin in one of the layers of what was once an old guardhouse and the town's first jail. It's all taking place just steps away from Center Block, where a small team is sifting through the remnants of the military complex that stood on the hill nearly 2 centuries ago. The soldiers worked on the construction of the Rideau Canal and lived in the barracks on the hill from 1826 until the mid-1850s. The whole complex took up the northern half of the hill and included stables, a guardhouse, and 3 barracks for 150 soldiers and around 40 wives. In just a month, the archaeology team has already uncovered 2 coins from 1813 and 1844, along with chin straps, parts of helmets, and a gorget, which officers wore to hold their neckties. But the biggest finds might come later, when they dig through the privies.
It's an excellent place to dispose of things. You need to keep the smell down from the human waste, and so you put fill layers on top in order to keep the smell down. So that comes with all the broken dishes and everything else that will help keep that smell down.
As one can imagine, the smell was probably quite strong with multi-chambered privies, like a row of porta potties, and no modern-day plumbing. One of those privies sits near what's now the Senate entrance on the east side of Center Block. The military complex also housed Bytown's only jail.
This was a small town at the time the canal was being constructed, and so the 3 cells were some of the only places to hold individuals properly. So the military allowed the constables to hold prisoners inside their jailhouse until they were able to transport them all the way to the capital in Perth at that time for the district.
The excavation of the guardhouse and barracks is set to cost around $1.2 million and is being covered by Public Services and Procurement Canada as part of the overall costs of the rehabilitation of Center Block. The department says the artifacts will eventually be put on display for the public. Kimberly Molina, CBC News, Ottawa.
Using art to tackle big topics with the goal of expanding the minds of children. Now that's the focus of Junior, a festival now taking place at the Harbourfront Centre.
I heard it was a great learning experience while getting in some fun.
Well, my son here, he wants to enjoy the festival. He's been at the musical instruments, he's been playing with the ants, he's just having a lot of fun down here.
We decided to come check it out and brave the little bit of chilly weather, and we're having a great time so far.
The festival is meant to challenge kids to see things from a different perspective. It features performances that tackle issues like identity, growth, belonging, and transformation. Giant ants, theater performances, and art programs are just some of the events. Junior will be ongoing throughout the long weekend. Sophia Cambalia is back with another look at the weather. So earlier you mentioned the long weekend and fireworks show. Please tell me the weather's not going to get in the way of that.
Don't let the thunderstorm icon on your app fool you too much. There is the chance for an isolated rumble of thunder. It is very hit or miss. The kids, if they're heading out to the Harbourfront tomorrow, won't necessarily need the hat and the jacket either, because for the unofficial kickoff to summer, we actually have some summer-like warmth. If you're heading out to Jurassic Park, the rain should hold off and the threat of thunderstorms until game timing. But what about firework timing? So for those of you in Southern Ontario, for much of Sunday evening, it should remain dry. There is the chance earlier in the evening for more of a rain story east of the GTA and into cottage country. And then if you're choosing fireworks on Monday evening, should be clear, but also a lot cooler as well. Shall we start off with the story of warmth, though? Because really, for the unofficial kickoff to summer, all we've really been wanting is some consistent spring-like weather. We'll take that. Instead, for a brief period on Sunday, you will be lulled into some 30-degree warmth, especially away from some of the lakes. It will come with the chance, especially later into the evening at dusk time for much of the GTA, for an isolated rumble of thunder. Not everybody is going to see a thunderstorm. If you do, it could bubble up to severe with wind and hail. Everybody will see the warm-up and the gusty winds, though, so that'll play a role into firework planning as well. If you do see a thunderstorm roll through your area, you will see much more rain than that. The rain for the Ottawa Valley is more a Monday story. Everybody will continue to see the winds into that. Again, a lot of severe potential with this storm system from stateside. In behind, we're talking a big cool down for Monday, and really we don't recover for much of the work week. Storm risk is heightened as well, I should mention, for the shores of Huron down to Windsor earlier in the evening on Sunday.
Okay, thank you for that.
You're welcome. Happy long weekend.
You too. Hundreds of basketball players hit the court in Scarborough for the Filipino Center of Toronto's annual long weekend tournament.
It's not about just winning, but all about coming together, having a good camaraderie, having good friendship, and enjoying the basketball game.
It's the event's 13th year. Now, players of all ages came to compete in 6 different divisions. And while we were there, we decided to ask the young Raptor fans what the team needs to do to win the upcoming games.
Play more as a team, like try to stop Giannis.
They have to fight hard and encourage each other.
They weren't communicating as much, and they weren't hitting shots.
I feel like we should set screens for Danny Green. He's a really good shooter, and I think if we set screens for him, we could get him wide open shots to make the 3.
Some good advice there. The Raptors face the Bucks in Game 3 tomorrow night at the Scotiabank Arena. That is our show for you tonight. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.